Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, text number 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kamyanam, Karmanam, Nyasam, Sanyasam, Kavayo, Viduhu, Sarva, Karma, Phala, Tyagam, Prahu, Tyagam, Vichakshana, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam. Sanyasam kavayo viduhu. Sanyasam kavayo viduhu. Sarva karma phala tyagam. Sarva karma phala tyagam. Prahus tyagam vichakshana. Prahus tyagam vichakshana. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam. Sanyasam kavayo viduhu. Sarva karma phala tyagam. Prahus tyagam vichakshana. The giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. Purport. The performance of activities for results has to be given up. This is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. But activities leading to advanced spiritual knowledge are not to be given up. This will be made clear in the next verses. In the Vedic literature, there are many prescriptions of methods for performing sacrifice for some particular purpose. There are certain sacrifices to perform to attain a good son or to attain elevation to the higher planets. But sacrifices prompted by desires should be stopped. However, sacrifice for the purification of one's heart or for advancement in the spiritual science should not be given up. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam Sanyasam Kavayo Vidu Sarva Karma Phala Tyagam Prahus Tyagam Vichakshana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life. Sannyas, and giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. So yesterday we discussed the questions of Arjuna when he asked Krishna, he wanted to understand the purpose of renunciation and of the renounced order of life, the difference between tyaga and sannyasa. So now Krishna is giving the preliminary understanding of these two terms, according to what wise men or sages proclaim. And we will find that Krishna later will confirm that these definitions are quite correct. It is very important that we accept the understanding of the great sages and saintly personalities. As it is stated, Acharyavan Purusha Veda. One who has an acharya or a spiritual master that he can depend on and get information from knows, as Prabhupada puts it, what is what. He knows things as they are, and he knows how to accept everything and how to reject those things which are also to be rejected. Sometimes we just talk about acceptance of things, or we talk about rejection of things, but we don't know that there's certain things that should be rejected and certain things that should be accepted. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikula vibhajanam. In the 6 symptoms of surrender, these are the first 2 items. Accept all those things which are favorable for devotional service, and reject all those things which are unfavorable for devotional service. Because, as we explained yesterday, devotional service is the key. Devotional service is the secret to success. But devotional service should also be done in a renounced mood. Now, that renunciation may be tyaga, as it is explained here, where you renounce the fruits of your results, or sannyasa, where you give up all activities which are meant for sense gratification. Actually, renunciation is only of one type. Real renunciation means to give up the objects of the sense gratification. Now, Mayavadi sannyasis, generally, if they're following properly the principles of Shankaracharya, they also give up all objects of sense gratification. They are very renounced. However, they do not understand the purpose of renunciation. It is stated by Srila Rupa Goswami that one should not give up activities which are meant to be used in real Krishna consciousness. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayansitaha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchite. Real renunciation means that you don't see something as an object of the senses. Instead, you see things as engageable in Krishna's service. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he was speaking in the Adi Lila 7th chapter about how some foolish people criticized him because he was engaging girls in the Krishna consciousness movement. Now I hope all you girls understand that if it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, you wouldn't be here. Actually, he created this ashram for the ladies so that they can also engage in Krishna consciousness out of his own mercy. He saw that in the Western countries, boys and girls mix very freely. Indeed, the boys go where the girls are and the girls go with the boys, automatically. They don't separate by nature. And if they do separate, it's only so they can talk amongst themselves about the other party. So Prabhupada could immediately see the nature of boys and girls in the Western countries. And therefore he thought that if I can somehow engage them both in Krishna's service, then I can get twice as much service as ordinarily would be expected. Because after all, as the Chinese say, the women hold up half the sky. Very wise statement. So Srila Prabhupada, I don't know if he knew the Chinese statement, but in any case, he understood the point that the ladies are very important in the Western countries. Therefore, he engaged them in Krishna's service by giving them the facility to do devotional service. And especially in the beginning, he was very pleased with his householder devotees who were engaged in preaching. For example, he sent 2 householder couples to England to preach. And they were doing very nicely in their preaching mission. So Prabhupada was very pleased with them. And he said that practically they were like sannyasi preachers. After all, according to the definition here of the renounced order of life, if you give up activities which are based on material desire, that's renounced order of life. One should only engage in activities which are based on spiritual life, spiritual activities. One should try to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead with whatever one has. Because if one doesn't do that, that's the opposite of yukta vairagya, or real renunciation, or valuable renunciation. And it's called Falgu Vairagya, Prapanchikitaya Pujya Hari Sambandhi Vastuna Mumukshavi Paratyago Falgu Vairagya Muchate. Srila Rupa Goswami always gives very complete explanations of everything that he explains. So he said, on the other hand, if you give up things which have a relationship with Hari, thinking that this is actual renunciation, then this is Falgu Vairagya, or improper renunciation, meaningless renunciation. Real renunciation means to engage oneself fully in the activities of devotional service under any and all circumstances. So in whatever way one is situated, he should serve Krishna. That's real renunciation. Otherwise, to just give up things as the Mayavadis might do. They would never agree to all these video cameras, all these speakers and amplifiers, all these conveyances, even shoes. Of course, we're talking about the Mayavadis at the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prakashananda Saraswati, and others. They were very strict followers of the Vedic injunctions. Sannyasis should not even wear shoes, because that is considered to be materialistic and not of the spiritual quality. So, who would be able to live in these Western countries without shoes? Especially when it gets to be minus 25 in the winter, as it does up here, and stays that way for a good month. Without shoes, what would happen? You'd get quite cold. Your feet would fall off. Then you would have no feet, then you would be unable to perform devotional service. So, Prabhupada knew you have to adapt. But he did not adapt completely. And that was actually his glory. He did not learn, for instance, one of his godbrothers wanted him to learn how to use a fork and knife and spoon, and how to wear Western dress because of the cold weather. But Prabhupada did not want to learn these things before he came to America. He said, I shall make them wear dhotis. Actually, Prabhupada was so convinced of what he was doing that he said, in the future, people will imitate our fashions. And that we have seen to be true. Now, how many people, young people, have sikas? Maybe not necessarily in the right place. We couldn't get that far together. Some have it in the right place too. Yeah. So, imitation of a good thing is a good thing. So people, they understood from Prabhupada. He was very strict in making sure that the regulative principles were followed. It's like he always used to say to those who criticized him for having the mixture of boys and girls in the temple. He said, of course they are separate. The girls are in their ashram, the boys are in their ashram. They are not allowed to mix in the ashrams. They are keeping separate. And he said, as far as the householders are concerned, they live outside, near the temple. And then they come to the temple. So in this way, there are no illicit activities in the temple. And it remains a place of preaching. And he was very proud of his disciples who were engaged in preaching. He was very proud of them so that they would be always engaged in devotional service. Because that is really sannyas. Actually, sannyas is one of the ashrams of the varnashram system. It is part of the material arrangement for material society. Now, a Vaishnava is supposed to be transcendental to these arrangements. And therefore, anyone who is actually a Vaishnava, who is firmly and totally fixed at the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna and performs devotional service following strictly the regulative principles throughout his whole life, such a person does not have to worry about attaining the sannyas order of life. It is not actually required for such a person because he's already engaged in the sannyas order because of his full engagement in devotional service. You know, some of Prabhupada's godbrothers used to call him a pacha grihasta, which means a rotten grihasta, because he was living outside and was engaged in devotional activities outside. But there was one of the disciples of one of his godbrothers who was very intelligent and who told his Guru Maharaj, he said, "Guru Maharaj, you called Bhaktivedanta a pacha grihasta, but actually he's as good as you are." That very much shocked the Guru, you can imagine, his disciple telling him like that. But factually we can see, what did Srila Prabhupada do in his household life? He was mainly concerned with publishing Back to Godhead magazine and publishing books. He was very much concerned with these affairs. He was writing the Bhagavad Gita commentary, which somehow or another was lost. But he spent so much time writing it, 1,200 pages it was. So he was using his household time to make sufficient Lakshmi, not only to maintain the family, which happened by the way, but to publish these literatures, which were very, very important for the human society. This is real renunciation. Srila Prabhupada showed us that renunciation in his life throughout his whole life, even up to his last days. Srila Prabhupada, in his final days, was the most incredible example of renunciation that has ever been seen in this life, in this historical time. Although his physical body was completely finished, and although he had not eaten solid food in months, and although he was a few days from departing from this world, he was writing literatures which had the greatest impact in the human society. We find Srila Prabhupada translated the 13th chapter of the 10th canto in such incredibly lucid and beautiful way that no one can possibly understand how he could do it. Prabhupada wanted Yadubara Das to film his final days, and Yadubara Das filmed how Prabhupada was translating at that time. He could not hold the microphone. Jayadvaita Maharaj simply held the microphone over his mouth in these last days. Prabhupada heard the Sanskrit from Pradyumna Das, and he spoke into the microphone in whispered tones because he could not speak. And he was translating the most wonderful purports, writing the most wonderful purports. If you read them, you will be amazed at how wonderfully Prabhupada has given these purports. Because his whole life was meant, the basis of his whole life was meant for giving us these transcendental books. Because he knew that if these books can be published and distributed throughout the world, there will be a change in this world. I know myself that I bump into people, older people now, who have had contact with Srila Prabhupada or his books or the Hare Krishna movement, and who are changed because of that. Maybe not full-time devotees, usually not. Maybe not greatly renounced personalities, but who understand something more about the spirit, about that they're not this body, the fact that the body changes, but the soul remains the same. I know that people are changing in their understanding all over the world. And it has a lot to do. Of course, being that we're Prabhupada fanatics, we might say it has everything to do with the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. Before Prabhupada's books were distributed, karma and reincarnation, yoga, these things were unheard of, or they were only heard of amongst very, shall we say, elite people, an elite group. Maybe a couple of scholars who didn't really believe it anyway, and a couple of people, an elite group. Very few understood. But after 20 years of distributing Prabhupada's books, we find that the society at large, a large group of people, a very significant percentage of the people of this world understand these basic concepts, accept these basic concepts, believe them, and even a larger group, which is another group which is becoming larger every day, live by them as well. Of course, along with all of this interest, the impersonalist class have also prospered. The Buddhistic class has also prospered. But the real origin or root of this is the actual Vedic literature. And if we, the devotees who are following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, can become actually learned in Krishna consciousness, if we can actually understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness very nicely, and if we can become scholarly, then we can preach to the people of this world, and they will accept Krishna consciousness, and we can gradually change this humanity. Of course, Krishna is there. Krishna wants this. We may not be able to understand exactly how it will happen, but we can understand that Krishna wants this. It will happen. Just like we know that Krishna wants the Mayapur temple to come up. We don't know how it will happen, but every year it's going on, and it's getting closer and closer to the point of starting construction and actually fulfilling that desire. How it is happening, I really don't know. It just happens. Similarly, this preaching goes on, but it requires a dedicated team to make it happen. It's like making this Mayapur temple happen. There's a dedicated team of devotees and non-devotees who are working also with great spirit and enthusiasm to make it happen. Similarly, this book production and distribution mission requires a dedicated team of devotees to make it happen. And this is very, very important. This is real renunciation of activities. Those who make this activity of the production and distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books, their life's mission, are truly in the renounced order of life, regardless of what ashram they may be in. And if the whole Krishna Consciousness Society can be fixed on this mission, then we can understand it will be very successful. Now, of course, there are other activities as well, which are also there to make the society very well-rounded. That is good. The congregational preaching, the farm projects and production of great amounts of food. Just like I have gotten a report of our Dole project, where so much food was grown, tons and tons and tons of food. I was so happy just reading all the numbers. It was completely ecstatic. And I have heard that the devotees are eating good in the various temples which get the food from there. Very good. That's what it's meant for. Prabhupada had that vision too. His vision was not single-minded, that it was only book production and book distribution. The other things had to be there as well. However, if the book production and book distribution was not there, if it was not the center of the whole activity, if it was not the main impetus and thrust, then something was wrong. Once you've got that set up, then everything else can prosper. But we've seen that somehow or another this year, book distribution has gone down significantly. Even though we had marathon in the middle of the year, it is significantly less than it was last year. And due to this, the BBT is struggling financially to maintain its commitments. So therefore, I implore you, do not forget this most important activity. Always try to bring new devotees into this Krishna Conscious Society so they too can engage in the book distribution mission. Don't get overwhelmed with material requirements which cause us to forget the book distribution mission. Always try to keep it in the forefront. Make more and more congregational members and give them the duty to distribute these books too, and to give the books to others who will distribute the books too, and increase the book distribution. You know, other groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons distribute 100 times more books than we do. And what are the books worth? 100 times more books than we do. And they do it all through their congregations, or by going door to door, or having others go door to door. They distribute so many books. We should also try to figure out the means and ways by which this may happen. And then our real spirit of renunciation will be manifested. And then we will actually be able to please Srila Prabhupada. That does not mean stop the duties that you are doing, but it means make sure, somehow or another, by any and all means, that the book distribution mission will go on nicely. And increase it more and more. It is essential that this happens. And this is the real spirit of renunciation. This is sacrifice. It is Kali Yuga's main sacrifice. Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Sumedusha. The main sacrifice is the Sankirtan mission, where we should chant the holy names of the Lord in public, on the streets and in public programs, and we should also distribute these books with greater and greater enthusiasm and greater determination. Make more and more devotees and bring them to the platform of distributing these books. Make the devotees we have more and more learned so they can convince more and more people who are in the congregation or elsewhere, in the universities especially, so that they can also understand the value of these books and distribute these books more and more. It is essential that this Krishna consciousness movement go on with great enthusiasm. And we are the ones who have to do it. If we do not do it, it will not happen. It must go on. So whatever activity you are doing, do it nicely for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And make sure that these main missions that Srila Prabhupada wanted accomplished, namely right now I can think of two very important missions: the production and distribution of his books and the construction of this Mayapur temple. Make it your life's mission to somehow or another cause these things to occur so that Srila Prabhupada will be very, very pleased with us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Somehow when I hear about renunciation, this is all I can think of. Because this is real renunciation. Real renunciation means to give up all other desires but the desires of your spiritual master. That's actual renunciation. Otherwise, people, they have so many desires. What are the desires of the materialist? To eat good, to have sex, and to watch TV. These are the main desires of the materialist. To sleep late, to have sex at night after stuffing the face full of food, and then to get up late, of course, after watching TV and so many things. This is all they do. This is their whole life. I have seen that some of our devotees also want to do this as well now. They think that this is very nice. If somebody can have his own flat with a TV set in it and a nice kitchen that he can cook his own pizza pies and stuff his face, and of course have sex, but nobody's supposed to know that, then he's a great success. And all the others want to imitate him. But this is not the Krishna consciousness movement. It has nothing whatsoever to do with spiritual life. This is material existence. If you want material existence, it's right there. You can take it. No one can stop you. But you're a fool if you want material existence. You should take spiritual existence. That's what this movement is all about. This is what we are meant for. We are meant for serving Srila Prabhupada's mission and Lord Sri Krishna's mission, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. We are meant for serving. We are not meant for engaging ourselves in material activities. This is not at all proper. We should not at all think that this is success. This is failure. To come to the Krishna consciousness movement and get saved from the material existence and then to fall back into material life again is the greatest failure. Only a fool would think that this is success. It's failure. One should try to move forward always and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. This is real success. And real success means to make the mission of your spiritual master your mission, your lifetime's mission. This is real success. Are there any questions?
Did Srila Prabhupada take deities with him when he was traveling around as a representative for the chemical company and worship deities when he was on travel? Do you know?
I don't know.
But later he was worshipping deities when he came to the West.
He had deities for some time, but he left them in New York. The small Radha Krishna deities, which are there in the New York temple today in Brooklyn, they were the Prabhupada's original deities. He was worshipping them, and then he left them in New York. I remember when Prabhupada came to New York, Brooklyn in 1971, that one of the things I had to do was make an altar for his deities. And he was worshipping his deities in his room. Also in Los Angeles, he would have deities in his room. So wherever he would go to the main centers where they had such deities, they would bring them, and Srila Prabhupada would have them in his room. And he would be very respectful to those deities. So it's very impractical to travel with deities on the airplane, so I don't think that was going on.
The outline which you gave, how to increase distribution, usually faces the reality of temples' economical infrastructure, which is not at all conducive for this formula. So what is the transitional period, how we can change this predicament of the situation which we have now, where most of the temples are not able to follow this, the ideal situation that you outlined?
Somehow or another get it done. I mean, I don't think I can here in this audience try to outline exactly the financial plan by which you can accomplish book distribution. It's a little bit over my head right now. But I think that one has to plan in such a way that one gets certain facilities that one needs, and once those are there, be satisfied with it, and don't try to get more. Just be satisfied with what you've got, and go forward from there, and in this way increase the book distribution. Again, why? Not everybody needs big houses. Not required. No. Not everybody needs big facilities. Once you've got, okay, fine. Then from there, move on. Distribute books. Try to stay out of debt. Very important. You must pay for everything you distribute every week that you distribute it. Don't go into debt. If you do, you're a nonsense rascal. I think that you can answer the question better than me. And you should, wherever you go. Glorious Minister of Book Distribution. Wonderful.
This is the desire of many people.
Wonderful.
Here in the European countries, they do the same, preaching radio, and just gather a lot of people who become friends. Then it will be so easy. This is the
Yes, why not? Yes.
Pronunciation and sense clarification. You sort of like pronunciation on the street.
Yes.
There are some legal meanings for sense clarification, like prasadam, like this. Sometimes notice when doing myself.
Eating prasadam is not sense gratification.
Maybe you eat too much.
If you eat too much, you just get sick. That's certainly not sense gratification. Especially in the beginning of spiritual life, eating prasadam too much is recommended. So you should not worry. You go on like that as long as you have not yet come to the point of understanding that you should not eat too much. If you eat too much prasadam, that's definitely better than eating too much non-prasadam. So when you eat prasadam, gradually you'll become purified and realize you don't need that much prasadam because it's transcendental no matter how much you take. And then you can gradually reduce, and then that is better. Anyway, as you grow older, you're going to reduce anyway. You have no choice. When you hit certain ages, you know, everything in the mouth makes the stomach goes up more and more and more. You get fat like anything. You can't digest, can't do anything, get sick. So by force, you have to eat less. When you're young and full of life and full of energy and full of metabolism, burn it up. Great, go right ahead. But don't eat too much that you get lusty. If you eat too much prasadam, especially sugary, you know, sugar things, ghee and sugar are very bad for brahmacharis. Too much ghee and sugar make you very lusty. When you become too lusty, then you commit sinful activities. You have to be very careful not to eat too much ghee and sugar. Therefore, temples should be generally during the week preparing very simple foods, not too much ghee and hardly any sugar or none of it during the week, and then on Sunday you can have ghee and sugar, but not too much. That was Prabhupada's program in the temples.
Sometimes there is criticism that ISKCON spends so much money for building projects and then they don't take care of the children and this and that. And I tend to think if you build a temple in Mayapur, it doesn't mean that there will be less money for Gurukul, but for me it's very difficult to explain that. But
Well, you can say that, especially nowadays, we're spending quite a lot on educational development. You can quote the Minister of Educational Development. I happen to know him quite well. And I'm quite sure that he's doing something right now to adjust that balance, because he's also in charge of the Mayapur project. So he knows exactly how to balance the two things. So you can answer that. You've heard from somebody who knows him very well that this is the situation. We're getting filmed on 16 millimeter film. Questions, otherwise I'm going to leave. Yes?
Yeah, it's not articles on the worship Damodar. After the Damodar prayers, we're chanting Janarata Damodar. Actually, it is Yashoda Damodar and the pastime of Damodar in Nagron. Here from Lokanath Swami that actually is not proper to chant Janarata Damodar, right? To chant Jaya Yashoda Damodar.
You shouldn't chant Jai Radha Damodar or Jai Yashoda Damodar. You should do it the way Prabhupada told us to do it. And I happen to have been there when Prabhupada created or introduced this chanting of the Namami Shwaram prayers, Damodar Ashtakam, and how to do it. The way Prabhupada did it was that at Mangal Artik, when the deity's Artik begins, you chant Namami Shwaram in the morning melody, and then you chant Samsara Dava in the morning melody, and then Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna. And then in the evening Artik, at 7 o'clock, the first thing that comes is the chanting of the Damodar Ashtakam in the evening melody, and offering of lamps. You offer lamps and chant Damodar Ashtakam and offer the lamps, and then you chant Gora Artik and then Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna. That's the way Prabhupada started it. And that's the way he wanted it done. And that's the way I've always told everybody in our zone to do it. But because in Vrindavan somebody speculated and did it in another way, everybody speculates. But actually that's not the way to do it. And there's no need for Jai this or Jai that at the end.
And he said that
No way.
I felt it like that.
No way.
Yes.
No, look what he's doing. He's shaking his head. No.
I was sure that if I tell him, he will say that. That's why I.
Let's ask him, what did you really say this morning?
Like sometimes
Anyway, let's say you understand what the spiritual master wants. You can understand that in one of two ways. Either he tells you directly, I want this, or he can tell you in general, I want somebody to do this, and then you can say, I will do it. So either way is good. Why didn't they? Probably, I think the wife and children of Srila Prabhupada didn't become pure devotees because Srila Prabhupada was destined to give up household life. And if his wife was Krishna conscious and fully, he would never have given up household life. And then he would never have done what he did. It was all Krishna's plan. Actually, his wife, whose name was Radharani, by the way, was at the end of her life in the hospital in Calcutta, laying on the bed. And she asked one of our devotees to bring her japa beads. And at the end, last days of her life, she was chanting Harinam Japa because of Srila Prabhupada's association. She knew, all the time she knew that he was right and she was wrong. She knew it, but she just wasn't strong enough. She wasn't a strong kind of bhakta type. But in the last days of her life, she understood that she's going to follow his example. And so she did that. And one of her sons was giving trouble to ISKCON at that time, in a famous court case where he was trying to claim that ISKCON was his because he was the son of Srila Prabhupada. So you laugh, but it was a very severe court case. In India, it almost worked, and he was paying the judges and everything. Besides that, anyway, she called him a complete rascal. She said he was a complete rascal. She said, my husband was a sannyasi. He was completely renounced and had given us up completely. So she said he has no more claim over anything that he created afterwards. So she was a good lady. Usually if everybody's chanting and dancing and they like it very much, they buy lots of books. Usually that's the standard procedure. As far as the programs I've done, I've always seen that we've sold lots of books after such nice programs. But if you have a nice program and they don't buy Srila Prabhupada's books at the end, then you must have done something wrong while doing the program. Therefore, I always, whenever we were doing these big programs, whenever I was lecturing, I would always end up my lecture by saying, and this is just a small portion of the philosophy. The philosophy is very vast, it is very wonderful. You can find out about it all in the books of Srila Prabhupada, and they'll be found in those book tables right over there and over there and over there. And you can go right now and buy those books, or you can wait on your way out, but you must take home as many books as you can. I always would end the lectures like that, and the people would get the point, and they would go buy the books. So it's important that the people who are doing the program emphasize the books at the program. It's like when we were first preaching in Poland in 1976, Srila Prabhupada wrote to us and said that, I know that it will be a success because you are distributing my books. So he always considered things to be a success according to the books which are distributed. What you doing? This is for posterity because Brahma Muhurta thinks that digital videos will not last. But that 16mm film will last. 150 years, he says, guaranteed. So if you're still here in 150 years, you can pat him on the back for doing a job well done. And if you're not here in 150 years, well, congratulations. Why has it been declining? There are many reasons. We are especially not creating book distributors by our preaching. People who are coming are not as strong as they used to be and as fired up with revolutionary spirit. I was discussing this the other day with one of my godbrothers, that when we joined Krishna Consciousness Movement, we did it with a full revolutionary spirit. We wanted to change the world. And that spirit was there throughout the 1970s, to change the world. And through book distribution was the world revolution. We wanted to do it, because in Bhagavatam it makes a revolution in the hearts of man, these books. In the 80s, in the early 80s, this revolutionary spirit was still there in another way for a little while. Then it went on in that same way. But then something happened in the 90s, and I don't know what. But people lost all revolutionary spirit. I think they sold themselves out to the establishment completely. And now the Krishna Consciousness Movement is very much concerned with being a bona fide religion in order to survive. Because governments all over, especially, are trying to repress us. So we're trying to be a bona fide religion. Okay, that's nice, but who wants to join a bona fide religion? What revolutionary is interested in a bona fide religion? You got Krishna Consciousness, bona fide religion, you got Judaism, bona fide religion, you got Catholicism, bona fide religion, you got all these different bona fide religions. So who cares? The revolutionaries want something else. And we really need these revolutionary kind of people to join us. So we have to show, especially university students, the intelligent class of men, that Krishna consciousness is a solution to the world's problems, and that it's actually a revolutionary movement. Cultural revolution, social revolution, spiritual revolution, on all levels. Then we will get that class of man again, who's very eager to be revolutionary by distributing the books of Srila Prabhupada. That's my own personal opinion. I don't know if it's a very good one. That's just what I thought myself. If somebody had told me in 1970 that Krishna consciousness was a bona fide religion, I would have said, good luck. But as far as I knew, it was just a nice place where a lot of young people got together and did the most far-out thing on the world. And they were completely against this whole materialistic society, which included the bona fide religions. And therefore I was attracted to it.
How to find the balance, because the governments don't like revolutionaries by nature.
Yeah, that's the problem. We're being forced by demons to become a bona fide religion. In that way, our potency will be cut in half, at least. It's an incredible strategy. They know they can't stop us, so now they've got us into the bona fide religion category, which is as good as stopping us. It's an incredible feat. Demons are so incredible. So we have to try to keep the spirit going. We can be a bona fide religion, that's all right, but a very revolutionary one.
When they wanted to stop us in Russia, immediately this revolutionary movement appeared one, this parliament. And all the newspapers, they pictured us. They pictured nobody except Hare Krishna, because we had this spirit. So what he said is came true in our situation very recently.
Great. Okay. Hi, Krishna. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate that you all take all the trouble to come up here. I know that you don't have nice places to stay, and I know that you probably sometimes feel a little hungry. And if you're here in Almvik, you may lack water sometimes. But it's great that you come, and it's great that we're together like this, and then I can tell you all the things that are on my mind at least once a year. And you can go back and you can tell others what I said, and you can play them the tapes and all of that. And in this way we can try to regenerate the mood, that revolutionary mood of preaching, which is so essential for this Krishna consciousness movement. Hi, Krishna.
So it's all her fault. Just see. So what do? You can't see the verse because of a complication. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, text number 3. Tyajam doshavad iti eke karma prahu manishinaha yagya dana tapak karma na tyajam iti chapare. Just try to do it by hearing. Tyajam doshavad ichu eke. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet, other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Purport. There are many activities in the Vedic literature which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain that animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give a new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice, it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord Himself. Tyajam doshavadicheke karma prahur manishinaha yagyadana tabak karma nachajam iti chapare. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So it is interesting how Krishna himself speaks about contentious subject matters, or subject matters where there are differences of opinion. Now, of course, we all like to follow the Vedic literatures, naturally. Whatever the Veda says, we like to do. But sometimes the Veda says two things. It may be done like this, and it may be done like that. If you remember the time when, just after on the evening of the last day of the battle of Kurukshetra, there was a very interesting activity which took place with Ashwatthama and the remaining soldiers. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I'd like to tell you the story anyway. At the last day, on the 18th day of the Battle of Kurukshetra, there were approximately 32,000 soldiers left on the side of the Pandavas, and all the soldiers on the side of the Kauravas, except for 3, were killed or had been driven away. One of those 3 was Ashwatthama. So Ashwatthama, he wanted to finish off this battle because he did not like the results. So he was sitting in a tree somewhere outside the camp of the Pandavas. Now, it was actually a mistake for all of these soldiers on the side of the Pandavas to be sleeping in the camp they had used during the battle. The rule is that when the war is over, whoever's left should close down their camp completely and move to a new place which nobody knows about. But they didn't do that. Only the Pandavas themselves did that. They were somewhere else. But everybody else stayed in the same camp. So Ashwatthama was sitting in a tree. Not a very nice place to sit, but that's what he was doing after the battle was over. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't sure about anything. So he was sitting in a tree. I guess that's a good enough place, or as good a place as any, after you've just lost a huge battle where millions of men are killed. So while he was in the tree, it was night, he noticed that birds were sitting on the branches and had their eyes closed and were sleeping. And that an owl, you know an owl? They live at night. They have big, big eyes, and they can see at night very nicely. And they also hunt at night. Owls are very inauspicious, actually. So the owls, there was an owl in the tree, and he was killing the birds while they were sleeping and eating them. So Ashwatthama, being that he was actually the son of a Brahmana, he could understand this is a sign. Just like now the forces of the Pandavas are sleeping, I am like the owl who's awake. So let me go to the Pandavas' camp while they're sleeping and kill them all. And at that time, because it was the desire of the Supreme Lord to finish off the job completely, because he had predicted in the Bhagavad Gita that except for the Pandavas, everybody else would be killed. So an altar appeared, an altar for the worship of Lord Shiva, the god of destruction. And Ashwatthama offered himself as a sacrifice on that altar and entered into the camp of the Pandavas alone, while two others stayed outside, the other two who were left, and guarded so that nobody could leave the camp. So Ashwatthama went in and started killing all the sleeping soldiers. He started off with Dristadumna, who had killed his father, while his father was trying to give up his body in a very Brahminical way on the battlefield. And he did it in a very low-class way. He strangled him with his foot. Although Dristadumna was asking him to please use a weapon so that at least he could get a better destination, Ashwatthama used his foot so that Dristadumna could not get a good destination after he died. Then he went and he killed all the others in the camp. It was a complete chaos. No one could understand what was going on. Women were screaming, and Ashwatthama was just going from tent to tent and chopping heads. He went to the tent of the sons of Draupadi, and they were also engaged in the battle. So he chopped off their heads and saved them. Because later on, after he finished his job, killing all the soldiers in the camp, then he went to Duryodhana, who had his thigh broken, his backbone broken by Bhima's club just that afternoon before, and was dying, laying on the battlefield. So he showed those heads to Duryodhana and said that they were the heads of the Pandavas. And Duryodhana, he was blind from pain and from his injury. He couldn't see. But he was feeling the heads with his face, with his fingers, and he could understand that these were the heads of the sons of the Pandavas, not the Pandavas themselves. And he was not at all happy with Ashwatthama. So Ashwatthama knew he did not kill the Pandavas. He did not know that the Pandavas were somewhere else. He thought he would kill the Pandavas too, and then he would be the only one left. But he realized the Pandavas were not killed, and he became very afraid. When the first rays of light appeared, the Pandavas were informed of what had happened, and Arjuna specifically, hearing that it was Ashwatthama, said that he would find Ashwatthama wherever he was and kill him. So Arjuna got on his chariot and started racing after Ashwatthama. And Ashwatthama was no match for Arjuna. Ashwatthama was just a plaything compared to Arjuna. And Ashwatthama was afraid for his life, so he was running like anything on his chariot. But Arjuna was coming faster and faster and faster. Krishna was driving the chariot. And Ashwatthama was very afraid. So because he was a son of a Brahmana, he knew some Brahminical tricks. So he shot an Brahmastra weapon at Arjuna. Because he was desperate to save his life. It was not proper to do it, but he did it anyway. And he chanted the mantras and did achman, shot the weapon, Brahmastra weapon, which was flying through the sky, illuminating everything with like sunlight. Everywhere was illuminated. And it was getting very hot and intolerable. Arjuna asked Krishna, where is this effulgence coming from? What is the cause of this? Krishna told Arjuna, this is the Brahmastra weapon shot by the son of Dronacharya, and it is coming to kill you. So immediately shoot your own Brahmastra weapon at this weapon and withdraw both of them and save your life. So that's exactly what Arjuna did. Because although Ashwatthama was supposed to be such a Brahmana, he didn't know how to withdraw the weapons, but Arjuna did. So he shot a Brahmastra weapon and withdrew both of them. And they both met in the sky. It was like the devastation of the universe. So then Arjuna captured Ashwatthama, bound him with ropes, and brought him before Draupadi, and wanted to kill him. Krishna wanted to kill him. Bhima wanted to kill him. But Draupadi, being a soft-hearted lady, she said, he is the son of our guru. Dronacharya was the military guru of the Pandavas. And his wife, it will have to cry like me over the death of her son. Why should she be put in the same pain that I am now? One who knows the pain of another never wants to put them in the same situation. Maharaj Yudhisthira thought, yes, that Draupadi was right, that we should not kill the son of a Brahmana, even though he's a rascal, number one. So there was a conflict. Bhima and Krishna on one side wanted him killed because he was the killer of sleeping sons. To kill while someone is sleeping is considered the greatest crime. No Kshatriya would ever do such a thing. And any Kshatriya who would do such a thing should be immediately killed. That's the Vedic injunction. To kill innocent people means you should be immediately killed. So Krishna and Bhima on one side wanted him killed immediately. But Draupadi and Yudhisthira on the other side wanted to give him mercy. Krishna was therefore testing Arjuna to see how smart he was. And actually Arjuna understood the point. He was to be killed, and yet there's no injunction for killing a Brahmana, even the son of a Brahmana. Therefore, Ashwatthama had the jewel cut from his head, his hair was shorn, and he was driven out. And in the Mahabharata it is stated that he was cursed, that for 5,000 years he would have no friend and would be tormented by pain. So Ashwatthama was driven out of the camp in a perfect understanding of how to balance the different aspects of Vedic injunctions. There's another story, Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj was following the Ekadashi Vrata for 1 year. For 1 year, he fasted completely on Ekadasi. No food, no liquids, nothing. And so, this was the final Ekadasi. He was to break it on Dvadashi. The time was just about to appear when he was to break the fast and thus complete his Ekadashi Vrata for the year. But at that point, Durvasa Muni showed up and wanted something to eat from the king. Now when a sage shows up, the king should not take anything before the sage does. So the king was ready to feed him, but then Durvasa Muni said he had to take a bath first. So then the king was in big trouble. Ambarish Maharaj, big trouble. He should have broken the fast, and the time was almost finished for breaking the fast. Yet at the same time, if he did, Durvasa Muni would get very insulted, and he would be cursed by the sage. It would be improper for him to do so. So he didn't know what to do. So he approached the Brahminical ministers and asked them what to do. And they were talking amongst themselves, but they couldn't come up with a solution. It was a very difficult situation. So then Ambarish Maharaj came up with the solution himself. Because he was a great devotee, he knew how to balance the Vedic injunctions. So he said, I shall take a glass of water. Because water breaks the fast and doesn't break the fast simultaneously, at least on the Dvadashi. So if I take your water, I will break the fast sufficiently for the Ekadasi, but drinking water is not sufficient enough to commit an offense against Durvasa Muni. So he drank the water, broke the fast, completed his brata, his vow. That story goes on. You know the story how Durvasa Muni became very upset with Ambarish Maharaj and created a big demon to kill him. And the Sudarshan Chakra of Vishnu came to kill the demon and then to kill Durvasa Muni. That story is in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those of you who don't have the 9th canto yet, well, I don't want to tell you the whole story right now. It will take too long. But the point was that the great devotees of the Lord, they know how to balance the Vedic injunctions. They know how to balance between what should be done according to the Vedic injunctions, even if there are contradictions there. I remember once in Bombay, on a morning walk, some men who were Hindus, not actually terribly learned, but they knew quite something. They said, it was their theory, it was their proposal, that animal killing is completely forbidden in the Vedas. Therefore, Buddha was correct with his philosophy of ahimsa, nonviolence. And they said, no animals should be killed. If animals are killed, we reject them completely. And Srila Prabhupada was saying, no, there are yajnas in the Vedic literatures. For example, the Ashwamedha Yajna, the killing of a horse in a horse sacrifice. There's also killing of cow, the Gomeda, the sacrifice, where these animals are given new life. So actually it is not really killing at all. The animal is killed temporarily for some minutes, and when the yajna is finished, the animal comes out of the fire with a brand new body, and he's very happy. Or else, he will get a human body, whereby he can become very fortunate to transcend quickly all of the different animal species he might have had to go through. So that is there in the Vedic literatures. Therefore, we cannot condemn animal killing as such, because certain kinds of killing are good. Just like similarly, we can say that killing a man is bad. That's murder, and the offender will have to go to, according to Vedic literatures, will have to be killed by the king, executed by the king. So killing a man is bad. But yet, the soldiers in the army are killing so many men, and they're glorified for it. So the injunctions have to be understood in terms of time, place, and circumstances. The situation has to be understood according to the way in which it has to be applied in a certain condition, certain situation. Therefore, Desha Kala Patra always has to be taken into consideration whenever trying to follow the Vedic literatures. We can also understand in this regard, in our Krishna consciousness movement, how Prabhupada has helped us to understand how to apply the Vedic injunctions in such a way that they are applied practically according to our capacity to follow them. Just like in various Vedic literatures, like the Puranas, you find in the Puranas, you find in various Vaishnava Tantras, that there are incredible rules and regulations that if you were told about, you would practically faint. All this is listed in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. I have a copy of that, but I'm not going to give it to anybody. It's really incredible. You read it, and you go, my God, oh no. Practically all the things we do normally are forbidden. Everything's forbidden. To live as a strict Brahmana is such an incredible tapasya for Westerners. It's impossible. Therefore, we are not revealing that, because everybody will just get discouraged. I remember once Srila Prabhupada said, if I ever told you all of the different rules and regulations which you are not following, you would faint. And factually, that's a fact. That's actually a fact. We would be unable to even begin. If we had to make everybody follow all these rules and regulations, and at the same time try to preach Krishna consciousness and expand the Sankirtan mission, it would be completely impossible. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami very intelligently gave this following proposal in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He said, Tasmat kenapi upayena mana Krishna deveshayed sarve nidit nisheda sur etore vikinkara. He said that in the beginning, to bring somebody to Krishna consciousness, we can only tell them a little bit about the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga, a little bit, until they become attracted and eager to follow. Then gradually, the rules and regulations can be given. Otherwise, if we gave the rules and regulations immediately, nobody would be interested in Krishna consciousness. It would be too difficult. I know also one of my godbrothers was helping some South Indian Brahmanas, actually with Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya of the Sri Sampradaya, who was helping us to install the deities in Hyderabad temple. Very wonderful man. wonderful brahmanas, all of them, very appreciative of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada liked them very much. This was in Hyderabad, I remember it very clearly, the yajna. So one of my godbrothers, who he was going to help them, but every time he would do something, they would go, "Oh no, what are you doing?" And he would go, "What?" And then they would shake their heads like this. He said once he was so tired he lay down on the floor. And they looked at him with horror and said, "How can you do that?" He went, "What did I do? What did I do?" So, to be very strict according to the Brahminical standards for Westerners is unthinkably difficult. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada gave us just enough so that we can come to the standard of becoming Krishna conscious. You know, simple things like eat with your right hand, wash your hands and mouth after eating. Don't touch things with your mouth or with your hands that have touched the mouth. Simple principles, simple cleanliness principles, enough to get by. And we can follow them pretty well. But more and more principles, very difficult. It's like we have seen now that this Archana Paditi, I don't remember what they call it, the one by Krishna Kshetra Prabhu and Bhakti Vichapurna Swami, Bhanu Swami, that one, 2-volume book, now gives many, many rules. But who is following all those rules? I remember when Srila Prabhupada, he asked Jayatirtha, it was in 1976, to, or maybe it was 75, I don't remember, 76, 75. Mayapur it was in Mayapur. So probably it was, I don't remember. Anyway, he asked him to take one of his godbrother's books, Archana Paditi, and prepare it for ISKCON. He said, but don't make it complex. Don't make it complicated with all the different rules and regulations. For no, but we want that our devotees shall be able to follow it. So therefore, I remember when this Archana Paditi was going to be produced, I was involved in the initial discussions of the format of the book, because I was supposed to be the publisher. So we decided that we would have two standards. One standard for the fanatics, who wanted to do everything, and one standard for the normal people, who were not able to follow everything. And that, I think, was basically what was used at the end. The point is here that there are many different ways you can see the Vedic injunctions. But with all these rules and regulations are actually a servant of two rules and regulations. All the rules and regulations there are a servant of simply two rules and regulations. Vishmartavya, smartata satatam vishnur, vishmartavya najatichit. Always think of Krishna and never forget Krishna. These are the two rules where all other rules are included. If you follow those rules, there's no need for any other. We find Srila Madhavendra Puri. He said, my morning bath, I bid you adieu. My daily puja, all of my nitya kriyas, the different things I have to do every day, goodbye. I will simply sit here and in Vrindavan and simply think of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead day and night. My relatives may think I am crazy. The people in general may think me demented. Those who are wealthy Mammonites may think that I have lost my mind. But factually, I only want to serve and satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have no other desire than that. So ultimately, the rule and regulation is to become a pure lover of Krishna. And if you are a pure lover of Krishna, then all the rules and regulations just go. As the gopis. When Krishna blew his flute on the full moon night of the Sharat season, in the forest of Vrindavan. So he blew his flute, and as soon as the gopis heard the flute, because the flute is a sentient being, and the vibration is conscious, Krishna's flute vibration is conscious, and Krishna was speaking to the gopis through his flute, and he was telling them, come to me, let's dance. And as soon as they heard the flute, they dropped everything and ran out of their houses. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine you're home with your husband, your fathers and fathers-in-law, mother-in-law, brothers, whole family. And it's unknown in Vedic civilization for a lady to go out alone at night. Unknown. In Vedic civilization, no one would be caught dead doing that. And as soon as they heard Krishna's flute, they ran out the door. And all of their relatives said, where are you going? They didn't even answer. What were they going to say? To dance with Krishna? That's an impossibility. There's no question of going to dance with Krishna. Krishna's not their husband. But this is the Parakiya Ras, the lawless love of Vrindavan. Therefore, immediately they ran out the door, ran to the far, even though they weren't dressed properly. God knows what they were wearing at that time. Some were even taking baths and were putting their dresses on in different wrong ways. They had half their eye decorated. Some were cooking. They just dropped everything. Some were very peacefully laying in the bed with the husband. They got up immediately and left. No one could understand what was going on. But by Krishna's grace, they could not be stopped. And those who were unfortunately stopped, because they were not actually qualified for the rasa dance at that time, they gave up their material bodies, simply meditating on the form of Krishna in ecstatic trance. So this is the ultimate platform of being a follower of the Vedas. That you give up everything just to render service to the Supreme Personality of God. This is the ultimate follower of the Vedas, the perfect follower of the Vedas. Now, of course, someone may think, oh, very good. Now I don't have to go to the morning program in the temple. Yes, but then you should also skip prasadam, because you don't need that either. Madhavendra Puri, he didn't go to the morning program in the temple. He just sat under a tree and chanted Hare Krishna. He also didn't eat. He never would go to the temple to get something to eat. He would never beg for something to eat. He would simply sit there chanting, and if somebody brought him something to eat, he would accept it. And if not, he would fast. That's the difference between one who is on that level of spiritual spontaneity and one who is a sadhaka trying to follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. We may not want to come to the temple program, but we will certainly show up for prasadam. If you want to know who's in the temple, you just simply have to go to the temple, to the prasadam room during prasadam time, and you can make a list. And everyone will be there, without exception. So therefore, it is not our position to artificially come to the platform of renouncing the rules and regulations. Not at all. But it is the goal to come to the platform of love of Godhead like the gopis. That is the goal. It is not something which can be done quickly. Maybe it will take you 60 years. I don't know. Maybe earlier. Before you get to that platform. But that platform we should get to. All of this sadhana we're performing now is to purify ourselves so we can get to the platform of pure love like the gopis. That is what we want to attain. Therefore, this sadhana bhakti is so essential. It is essential because it helps us, it actually brings us to the platform of the perfection of bhakti. Without the sadhana process, you don't get to the perfection of bhakti. There's sadhana siddhi and kripa siddhi. Don't expect kripa siddhi, perfection that comes by the honorary degree. Very rarely is that attained. Generally, we attain perfection through the sadhana siddhi. There is no controversy about sadhana bhakti. It is given there in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, given there in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. We know what we have to do. You just read that book. That's the law book for the Krishna consciousness movement. We should study this Nectar of Devotion and develop our Krishna consciousness according to the rules and regulations of action which are given in that book. It is essential to come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, try to become a pure devotee. Try to become a learned personality who knows the art of preaching Krishna consciousness and who can follow the rules and regulations to become very highly advanced in devotional life, so one can surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. In this lifetime, why must we wait? We want to attain perfection in this lifetime. Even before we leave this body, we want to be absorbed in the pastimes of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. That is our goal. So try your best to come to the goal by gradual improvement through the sadhana bhakti process. Take shelter of the deities in the temple and become Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna. Question?
I don't understand. Srila Prabhupada had to water down sadhana.
Water, he did not water down anything. He chose certain principles to emphasize, and certain principles he did not mention. It is not a question of watering down.
Just thinking, according to how strictly we can even follow those minimal side rules that Prabhupada emphasized, how is it possible? Many devotees have trouble in following that to reach a standard.
It's not possible. If you cannot follow the principles that Prabhupada gave, you're not going to get to the platform of Prema Bhakti.
Who cursed Ashwatthama? Yeah. Who cursed Ashwatthama? What was the curse?
I mentioned that. He was cursed by the Pandavas. They cursed him. And the curse was that he would wander without a friend for thousands of years. Maybe it was 3,000. I don't remember exactly. 3,000 or 5,000. We'll find out when Hridayananda Maharaj gets to that point. And he would suffer from hunger and thirst, if I remember correctly. It was a very terrible curse. We don't find that curse mentioned in the Bhagavatam. We do find that mentioned in the Mahabharata. Yes, when you're performing an animal sacrifice, not specifically an Ashwamedha yajna or something like that, but where you just take certain animals which are killed in the forest during the hunt, and you bring them back for the sacrifice so that the flesh may be offered in the sacrifice, that has to be atoned. And that's atoned by another sacrifice, which you do after the sacrifice. So it all works out. So killing animals is not very good. But, for example, Indra became Indra because he did 100 Ashwamedha yajnas. Prithu Maharaj, he did 99. He almost made it. But Indra wouldn't let him continue. So therefore, we can understand it's a bona fide thing. Yes? Why couldn't the sacrifice go on without the offering of the animals? Why is it necessary? That's the way the Vedic injunction is. You have to sacrifice something. So, sacrificing a life is more valuable than just sacrificing some wealth. And besides, the sacrifice of the animal was also used because when the animal was brought back to life, then the Brahmanas knew that they did the sacrifice properly. The whole point of sacrificing the animal was to give him a new life. So, if that was done properly, then the Brahmanas were satisfied. They knew, well, we did it right. And if it was done improperly, then the Brahmanas would get in very much trouble. They would be guilty of killing an animal. Therefore, they were very, very careful to do the sacrifice perfectly. High stakes, you know?
We started in the base since our Lord. And from that from Gita, we do our proper Krishna with all milk product, which is ghee or.
You should definitely try to use ghee as much as possible. But if you don't have the money to do that, or you're in a small teaching center somewhere where you haven't gotten it together to use ghee and all that kind of fancy stuff, then using oil may be accepted, but then also you will have less standard in the deity worship, because you don't have deity worship. But if you have deity worship, you should offer the deities ghee.
Chciałam spytać, bo dużo widziałem na wykładzie o osiąganiu doskonałości poprzez sadhanę.
During the lecture, we were speaking about attaining perfection through sadhana.
miłości do Boga.
Thanking for the love of God.
A jakie znaczenie ma łaska mistrzostwa Twojego?
What is the role of the spiritual master's mercy in attaining perfection?
That's the kripa. Spiritual master, he gives you mercy, but kripa siddhi, that means specifically mercy which is so powerful it brings you to the platform of perfection, even though you may not be qualified. That's very rare. Now the spiritual master also gives you mercy. For example, if you're following the sadhana process nicely, you will get automatically mercy from that. But that is the little mercy, incremental mercy. Not the big, all at once, atomic bomb mercy. Put in a very colloquial way, I guess, but...
I have two questions. One is concerning reading and the other one is chanting. So the first one, reading, you say that all disciples should read 1 hour a day.
At least 1 hour a day, everybody should read, everybody.
This means private reading?
Private reading, yeah, you open the book and your eyeballs go over the words and they go into your brain.
Okay, so my question is, it happens sometimes that I mismanage my day in such a way that I don't have time to read 1 hour a day. It is stated that if one doesn't follow the instructions,
No, it's not that if you miss it one day because you were doing too much service that you're going to fall down. Not like that. It's not an offense. It's, I want you to read 1 hour a day, minimum. But if you can't do it for some day and it's 59 minutes one day, don't get worried. Or if you can't do it one day because you're too busy and too much service, then it's all right. But try to organize and manage your life in such a way that you always get that reading in.
So like for instance, on marathons, you're going out because you read books and you don't have time for 1 hour. It's not that when you stay up till 11 o'clock at night to read.
No, you shouldn't stay up to 11 o'clock at night to read, no. And second?
Concerning japa, it usually takes me 2 hours, maybe sometimes 15 minutes to chant and take out. And while doing this, some of the devotees were commenting that this is taking a very long time, and that it's due to lack of concentration. They gave you as an example, saying that that you are chanting sometimes 16 rounds in 45 minutes.
What? That's ridiculous. 16 rounds in 45 minutes? Somebody told you that? That's ridiculous. I'm pretty fast when I have strength. If I have some strength, physical strength, then I can chant 1 round in about 6 minutes. Maybe a little more or less, something like that, if I have strength. If I have no strength, if I'm in my usual condition, then it goes up to 7 minutes. Something like that. So 6 times 16, 60, 36. 1 hour, huh? 1.5 hours. So it usually, actually it takes me more than 1.5 hours, to be quite honest. I can usually finish my rounds about 1 hour and 40 minutes. So maybe it's more than 6 minutes, something like that. 1 hour and 40 minutes is about my standard. When I'm doing good. And if I'm doing bad, then 2 hours, at least 2 hours. So 2 hours is not bad.
So the speed of chanting doesn't have to do with how fast the mouth is moving, but it has to do with concentration. It's true.
Speed of chanting obviously has to do with how fast the mouth is going. But just moving the mouth fast is not chanting Hare Krishna. You've got to employ the ears too, and the heart. So all these things are required. This fell off again. This has to be glued on properly. Otherwise we're going to lose this and then it's never going to be found again. All the senses have to be employed properly when engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's very essential that you concentrate a lot. But concentrating a lot, you may chant slower. Maybe somebody who's chanting fast doesn't hear anything. And maybe one who's chanting slow, his mind is just all over the universe. That's why he's chanting slow, because he can't concentrate. So it's not the speed that is the factor, but it's the way in which you do it. For 45 minutes, that's a joke. Oh, I can't hear you. Well, Srila Prabhupada told me on a morning walk, and I don't remember if I recorded it or not, but we talked about it on another morning walk when it was recorded, so it's definitely there. But at that first time he said that when you fall down from the spiritual sky, you take the form of Brahma. The point being that your spirit soul is very powerful, so therefore you get the most powerful material body to start off with. And then I said, but Srila Prabhupada, there's only one Brahma and there's many, many souls. And then he said it was inconceivable. So exactly how it all works, don't ask me. But that was what he said. One shouldn't what? Shouldn't what? What is he saying? I don't know what you're talking about. Should not prepare for envy. I don't think anybody does prepare to be envious. Like today, I'm going to be envious. It's something that just happens. Because Krishna guarantees, Yam prapada nivartante tad dhamma parama mama. Once you go there, you'll never come back again. You'll never make the same mistake again. Krishna guarantees it. Isn't that good enough?
In your lectures, you give instructions in our spiritual life. General design discrimination instruction is spiritual master, which you should follow,
You should follow all the instructions, but if there are contradictory instructions, then you have to follow the one which is according to what your service requires. You follow all the instructions, but if spiritual master gives you one day an instruction, serve the deities for the rest of your life. And then the next day he gives an instruction, you should become an artist. Then there's a problem. If it's something like that, there's a problem, then you have to go to the guru and say, well, how can I serve the deities and become an artist? He may say you can paint in your spare time. Or he may say, actually, better now you to be an artist than to be a deity worshiper. Something like that. Understand? You have to ask if there's a problem.
Yeah,
What deities? Who made the standard in the first place? He made the standard. Well, huh? He didn't install the deities. Set the standard, and the deities are not installed. Well, once you make a standard, it's not nice to reduce the standard, but if you cannot maintain the standard, then you'll have to go before the deities, explain to them why you cannot maintain the standard, and then you reduce it, but then don't reduce it again. And it is not a bona fide principle to reduce the standard that the cooks can't go on Sankirtan, therefore we reduce the standard. This is not a bona fide reason. Unless your preaching center is so small that you can't maintain it unless the cooks go on Sankirtan. Then it's a bona fide reason, because the deities have to be maintained in their flat. Okay? That doesn't mean that I like that. If you're really surrendered, you understand there's no question of the wreck in your life. It's not like, I like that my life is a chaos all the time. I like when things are set up nicely. It goes this way, and then this way, and then this way, and this way. But it doesn't work like that all the time. Because there's always somebody coming in here, and something happening there, and something over there. So, I know there's no use in trying to set up my life according to some plan. Because it's not going to work like that anyway. Because Krishna has his plan. I better follow his plan, not my plan. And his plan always takes precedence over my plan. So therefore one should be surrendered to Krishna so that his plan will be followed. And one shouldn't make strict plans. My life will be like this. Because you're not the controller. You can't say your life will be like this. Who are you to say like that? You can make a proposal, but it's up to Krishna whether or not your life will be like this. And most likely it won't be. So therefore one should surrender to Krishna, and whatever it is that Krishna wants, you accept. Then you're not in anxiety when somebody comes and proves to you that you're not the controller, as they usually do every day. Okay? Sing Mangal Artik late at night? No. Of course, that has to be established in your own particular temple with your own authorities and GBC and thing like that. I wouldn't want to make a pronouncement which may not be acceptable to your particular authority. But one has to use his intelligence and he can figure these things out. Louder, please. Impersonal. Impersonal is usually meaning that you don't accept form. Don't accept the form.
should sit down.
Everybody please sit down.
Be with us. Maybe we are a little sentimental, thinking that we can please you by washing your feet very nicely, singing sweetly, and making all sorts of arrangements for you on this day. But you are very practical. You are our down-to-earth guru. Down to earth, but out of this universe. Yours is not the bona fide, politically correct, state-approved, new age holistic love mission. You didn't tell us, nice, that you have all come here to worship me. The one thing you mentioned was that by all being together, you could tell us all very nicely and intensely what you wanted us to do, what you wanted to get accomplished. This was the main point. You want to reach us. You spoke about renunciation, and you defined it. To give up all other desires, and to keep only the desire of the spiritual master, this is real renunciation. In other words, you boldly stated, it is nice that you have all come here, because now I can tell you what I want you to do. I want you to give up all other desires and accept my desires instead. Then you told us what your desires were. These are all very simple and straight dealings. Others may call it indoctrination. And again, others may wonder where the love element is in all of this. I just said that we are all very happy to have you here with us. Actually, we want to worship you. We need to worship you. We are so thankful that you allow us to do that. But I think we all realized yesterday that the actual worship are not the garlands, the cakes, the sweet songs, and pouring of various liquids over your feet. It is almost embarrassing to admit it, but the actual worship is putting us again in the position of receivers. You are the giver. You are giving us your desires, and we worship you best by accepting your desires. You are making the gift, we are accepting this gift. Even if, like on these Vyasapuja days, we really try hard to do everything for you and for you only, you are still taking this opportunity to give us more and more and more. This is what it has to do with love. And if we want this exchange to continue beyond the limits of a few intense Vyasapuja days, then we would definitely worship you best by doing those simple things that you are imploring us to do again and again and again at the end of each lecture. And that will make you happy, because that is your desire, Srila Prabhupada's desire, Krishna's desire. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. In the name of all your disciples, you will be serving the economic answer.
Now give you out the book of the Vyasapuja book.
Vyasapuja, for your personal pleasure, books from the DBT, Science of Self-Realization in Turkmen. And another Turkmen book, the Sri Ishopanishad. Srila Prabhupada brochure in Ukrainian. Journey of Self-Discovery in Croatia. Maybe somebody can put them on the table for solution. That's the Journey of Self-Discovery in Macedonian. Easy journey to other planets in Uzbek.
What is this? Easy journey to other planets in some.
Another Uzbek title, The Nectar of Instruction. There are lots of Uzbek books. Here's another one, Beyond Birth and Death. And another Uzbek, Perfection of Yoga. They were very productive in the Uzbek language this year. And one more Uzbek book, Life Comes from Life. Incredible. Another Uzbek title, The Science of Civilization. And last but not least, Srila Prabhupada Lamrita, also in Uzbek. And there is a title in Hungarian, that's The Nectar of Devotion. Then a book, a manual, that's the Readings in General Translation Theory from the VBT Training Services. Then two Sankirtan magazines from the VBT in Moscow. And there are 4 Russian titles. First one, On the Way to Krishna. And Our Original Position, also in Russian. And The Journey of Self-Discovery, Russian. And the Yamuna Cookbook, also in Russian. And 3 titles of Vande Prabhupada Sumedasam, all 3 in Russian. So in the BBT we will try to make more and more books. Premarasa Prabhu's book on the Sanskaras, not from the BBT, that's a Premarasa publication. Vishnu Pariki!
Also, a few other little things. This is from the Sentient Press, the lecture tapes.
folders. This is 4 folders of lectures Vishnupat gave in Argentina.
From now on, all traditional thoughts tapes will come out in folders like this, and everybody can have standing orders to get all these. 1 folder a month.
Vyasapuja brought from the disciples in Mayapur. There is a manuscript and a demo tape of the Song Divine, rock opera. Sankirtan's course.
For your pleasure, Vishnu Bhatt, we will read book distribution results from this 2-week Islam Guru Marathon. Out of many devotees who were out on Sankirtan, we will read the first 25. And we will read only the total points, book points. On 25th place is Nalaraj Das with 668 points. On place 24 is Anangalata Devi Dasi with 683 points. Place 18 is Indri Devi we have Dr. Rocheria with 683 points. Okay, now in place 22 is Hendrik Davidasi with 710 points. Place 21 is Vatlaka Das with 745 points. Place 20 is Manidhar Prabhu with 793 points. Place 19 is Priplava Das with 802 books. Place 14 is Place 18 is Bhakta Lavya Das with one Srimad Bhagavatam set and 848 points. Place 17 is Mahesha Das with also Prasadam, 528 package and another 523 books gives him 882 points. 16th place is Chandan Mai Das with 906 points. Place 15 is Gauranga Priya Devidasi with 985 points. Place 14 is Rasayana Das with 993 points. Now over 1,000 points. On place 13 is Ramapriya Das with 1,126 points. And place 12 is Kaudavasini Devi Dasi with 1,280 points. Then on place 11 we also included the four best Russian devotees from Moscow. We have 11 places Vikrakrit Das with 1,350 points. 10th place we have Manamai Das with 1,394 points. And in place 9 we have Deva Yaduvar Das from Moscow with 1,401 points. Place 8, Chandika Devi Dasi with 1,403 points. Then, 7th place is Apramata Das from Moscow with 1,427 points. Then, on 6th place, we have Kalushanashana Das with 1,434 points. 5th place, Ita Devi Dasi with 1,628 points. 4th place is Rohini Nandana Das. Incredible. Everybody knows how. He did the books. 1,225 brochures, 67 medium books, and almost 1,600 books. It gives him 1,709 points. Then on 3rd place, Navina Nirodha Prabhu with one full set, some CDs, 130 CDs, and 1,567 books, gives him 1,912 points. himself, Harikesa Das, with almost 100 CDs, 250 brochures, 1,675 books, and total points 2,043. Then, the best distributor we have is Matachi from BBT Moscow. Is first place, Harada Devi Dasi. She distributed 1,000 tapes, 200 big books, 1,046 small big books, gives her a total points of 2,270. So then we will read briefly the total of the different yatras. We have 11, some we will add another one. Devoted from Prague, actually called Mr. Unless you can mess up, I say. On 11th place is Bosnia with 361 points. 10th place Norway with 1,284 points. 9th place is Austria, mainly with Prasadam, 1,306 points. 8th place is Croatia, mainly books, 1,342 points. 7th place Slovenia with 2,662 points. They distributed a little everything, not a lot of Prasadam. Then Denmark in 6th place with a lot of Prasadam, almost 6,000 package and little CDs and 1,195 books, given total points 3,087. 5th place we have Finland with a lot of Prasadam, about 7,000 packages of Prasadam and 633 books, given 3,202 points. Then fourth place is Sweden, with also almost 5,000 packages of Prasadam and 3,078 books, give them a total of 5,049 points. Yeah. Then we can take a third place is Moscow Temple. The results we have from Moscow, there were actually more, but it's actually only devoted from Vegovaya Temple. They had about 4,300 points. Then we can add another country. The devotees from Czechoslovakia, part devotees, they distributed during this 2 weeks marathon period about almost 12,400 books and almost 13,500 points. Then on second place is Germany with 7,264 CDs, about 3,000 brochures, Prasadam only 1,100, and books 10,228, and total coins 16,292. First place is the Swiss Yatra with almost 900 CDs, 1,370 brochures, almost 6,000 Prasadam package, and 15,816 books. Gives a total of 20,422. Sum total of all the yatras without Czechoslovakia, without Moscow, our zone, North European zone, about 9,400 CDs, 70,000 brochures, 32,700 packages of prasadam, 34,605 books, and a total of points 55,013 points. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Shri Vishnu Bhat ki jai.
And yet relaxed presence is contagious. Your humorous intelligence and sober analyzing mind, your productive musicality and perseverant work in spite of so many obstacles, your concerned gentleness and forgiveness, and also your commanding heaviness and strictness. All these qualities we love and admire. Therefore, you are convincing. But your conviction is anchored in knowledge and experience.
Now during the Guru Puja that follows, everybody can come up and you can hand over your gifts, your letters, whatever offerings you have. You come up from that side, you can take the flower petals down below the steps there. You come up and offer whatever you want to offer, and you come down on this side.
Shri Guru Charana Kevala Bhakti Sarvaya Shri Guru Charana Nobody.